we were just in a really dark, heavy, hard place, wondering. I think for him, he was wondering, like, should we keep doing this? And I was wondering, how am I going to survive this for another 60 years? I hate this. This is miserable. Okay, well, I can't really talk about where I'm at and what I'm going through in my world, which is exhaustion and stress and a new baby and all these things, and then add another baby to that, and it's double the exhaustion and stress. And COVID happened, the world shut down. We were super, super fortunate that his boss at the time was like, it's fine, I'm gonna keep you on payroll, we're just gonna wait it out, and we'll see what happens. Go home. So he was home. And interestingly enough, turns out we actually do like each other. We actually do like to be together. And the thing that was really tearing us apart was the fact that we were living separate lives. And a lot of work the past 5 years. It's been a lot of challenge. But the awesome thing is that we traded the struggle and the challenge of our marriage being the worst thing in our life to our marriage being the best thing in our life. And the challenge is something we're facing together rather than against each other.
Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Broken to Build podcast. I am Lauryn DeLoach, your host, and I am here with a very special guest who I am really excited about. Helen Morrison is here with me, and she is the what of Frownies?
The 5th generation female founder.
I love that. Okay. And so the way that Helen and I got connected, I do want to preface this. I love Frownies. I am an avid user of Frownies. I live in Palm Beach. So naturally everywhere in the world, there's a lot of Botox and fillers and all the things. And I am doing what I can do to stay relatively wrinkle-free. So I found Frownies several years ago and have been obsessed with them. So I am so excited to have Helen on today joining us.
Awesome. I'm so excited to be here.
So cool. Why don't you just give everyone a little intro of you, who you are, and then we'll jump into your story.
Yeah, awesome. So like she said, I am Helen Morrison, and I'm the 5th generation woman in my family who's a part of this small family business, Frownies. The brand was started by my great-great-grandmother in 1889. We make essentially wrinkle patches that are, I would say, the world's best alternative to Botox if you're looking for something that's non-invasive and natural. I never intended to be a part of the family business in this capacity, but sometimes, life takes a turn in ways you never expected. And so here we are.
Yeah. And so you're married and kids, right?
Yeah, I'm married, and I've been married for 15 years this summer. And I have 2 children, a boy and a girl, who are 10 and 7 years old.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I would love to just delve right into your story wherever you want to start. We're just happy to share your authentic, real story with people.
Definitely. Well, just to take it back, yeah, like I said, I've been married for 15 years. In my former life, I was a school teacher, and I taught elementary special education for K through 6. And I am a yoga and fitness instructor, and I've been doing that for about 17 years. And my husband was a pilot. He has a major passion for aviation. That was his thing. And when we first got married, I was teaching school, and he was kind of finishing up his aviation training. So we were really relying on my income through teaching to kind of sustain ourselves while he finished up in aviation. And then full on deep dive into aviation once he was ready to do that. And as that shift took place, we were able to start having children, start, having family. And I stopped teaching stopped teaching school, and was just home with the kids and teaching yoga on the side. Now, once I started having kids, I also was not able, and it was harder, I should say, to go in and out of the studio and teaching live classes. So I kind of started my own little, side hustle through social media and Instagram, doing some online fitness coaching. And that was, when my children were very, very small. But at the very same time, if there are any aviation wives out there, or military wives, people who have husbands who travel, My husband's aviation career was taking off, but that meant he was gone about 208 days a year flying. So it was kind of a schedule of 8 days gone, 6 days home, 8 days gone, 6 days home on repeat for years and years when our children were really, really little. And
How
as you can imagine, yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Can you delve into that a little bit? My husband was a missionary for years, still is technically a missionary, so gone for, weeks at a time, that kind of stuff. So, can you talk about that being a young mom and having stints where it's like it's only you and the kids?
Yeah, it was really hard. No, it was very challenging. I think in general, when you are a young mom, if there are any moms out there, you probably all can relate. You're probably all shaking your heads, but it's hard on a marriage just in general, starting family, right? You go from your life being your own and you have plenty of time for each other and you do what you want and you have time to take care of yourself and you think you're busy and you have no clue. Sorry to those out there without kids. You don't have a clue.
So my sister doesn't have kids. She's a year younger than me. They won't have kids. She's always like, "I'm just so busy." I'm like, "I don't know your life. I don't know. I don't get it."
Just a different world. Once you have children, your life is, you're given this responsibility to really take care of these human beings to get them to the place where they can take care of themselves, but it takes a long time. And in the early days, it's all consuming. And so just early on having kids in and of itself, it's a little bit of a shock to your system. I remember holding my son when he was first born, my first baby, and just thinking, this is it. I'm going to be sitting here holding him for the rest of forever and I'll never go anywhere again. Because it just is so shocking and this life is your responsibility entirely.
Mhm.
Of course, things change and they grow fast, but in those early days, it's just a lot. And then there's just so much, you're so tired and you have so much less time for each other, let alone for yourself. And then when you do have time, you kind of need to take care of yourself. And so that takes away from the time that you have for each other. So it's just really hard in a marriage, just having kids in general in those early days. And you kind of go into it knowing that's what you're going to do and you're committed to it, but it can be a challenge. Even when you know something is, good and you know that prioritizing taking care of your baby is what you both want to do and have to do, exhaustion and tiredness still has its effect and it's still just very difficult. So that's a strain in general. And then add to that him being gone. And I think that even, we just started to pretty much live in two separate worlds because he's living in this aviation world. And also in that, there's a component of needing safe, like he needs to be safe, right? It
Right.
can be very dangerous if you're flying and you're tired and your mind is elsewhere. So he needed to be very focused on safety. And so with that, for me, there was this like, okay, well, I can't really talk about where I'm at and what I'm going through in my world, which is exhaustion and stress and a new baby and all these things, and then add another baby to that, and then it's double the exhaustion and stress. And so you just start to kind of close off and shut down and drift further and further apart because you're not even around each other. And I think it's really like time is what builds a relationship, right? And being able to share your lives and all of those things. And in because of like him needing to not be stressed by my world and the kids and what we're doing, and him needing to not be tired, I just kept taking on more and more on myself, on my own, and just going, drifting further and further apart. And just also living 208 days apart from each other, you just don't have that connection. And so it just got to be really, really challenging and very lonely. And I think, again, just as a young mom, it can be a really lonely season in general. Even if you have plenty of friends, you're living by nap time schedules. You've always got to get back home for the next nap and the next, breastfeeding or whatever it is you're doing. And so your world is just very much on these small kids, and you can just start to get into a place where you're just going through the motions of doing the next thing you need to do for them, and you're sort of just shutting down inside, even. And it's just all that you can do to just survive. And I think that's kind of where we were at, is just living in survival. And it became a huge strain on us. And I think even just, I think it's common in general for men and women, if you are a stay-at-home mom, for, the dad who's off at work doesn't always understand the experience of what it's like to be at home with the kids all day long. And then again, for that, not just at home during the day, just all the time. And I had a system and a schedule and like, this is the life I have to keep to survive and to make this happen and to keep everybody alive and fed and do the things we need to do. And he didn't really fit into that because he wasn't in it with us. And then when he came home, of course, he was so excited to see the kids and everything and me. And I wasn't excited to see anybody. I was ready to go be alone and have some time to like breathe and think. And then, that was hard for him, the confusion of like, well, I've been gone. Why aren't you happy to see me? And then he wasn't in the day-to-day struggle with the kids. So for him, it was easier to not be stressed by them. And so even not understanding why they stressed me out so much or why I was so exhausted. And he's like, this is amazing. Our kids are amazing. I'm like, of course they're amazing, but I'm tired. So it just created more and more conflict for us. And it just was really, really difficult. And even for a time, we started to go to some counseling and things like that. And by like we would go and it would be like, okay, I think we're gaining some ground. And then it was time for him to leave again. So we're always starting all back all over again. And we were just in a really dark, heavy, hard place, wondering. I think for him, he was wondering, like, should we keep doing this? And I was wondering, how am I going to survive this for another 60 years? I hate this. This is miserable. I'm struggling. And what are we going to do? And he kind of talked about like maybe I should stop flying. And that was really scary sounding to me too, because I was like, well, I don't really like it when you're here, but I also don't like it when you're gone. So I don't know what to do. We were just in a really difficult place. And honestly, like, thankfully, I think that, the Lord has every one of our days written in his book before any of them come to be. That's a promise, right? And he knew and he saw it all and he had a plan. And there was some kind of talk with us about, okay, would you stop flying? Would you not? And I was just like, no, let's not do that. I'm not ready for that. I don't know. And then I also felt like, well, what would we even do? Like, we have two kids now. I'm here with them. We have to financially, get through too. So fast forward and COVID happened. And so everybody was forced to be home. And we were really fortunate because he had just started a new job and it was kind of like everything we had been working for was essentially to get to where he was someone's like private pilot. And that he started that new position kind of in like a January of 2020. So I was like, okay, this is going to be better, right? Like now you have just one person to fly for. Turns out it was actually worse because now instead of a schedule, it was like on call, leaving random times. And it got to be like, okay, well, if this is the best and this is actually worse, what are we going to do? But like I said, COVID happened, the world shut down. We were super, super fortunate that um, his boss at the time was like, it's fine. I'm going to keep you on payroll. We're just going to wait it out. We'll see what happens. Go home. So he was home. And interestingly enough, turns out we actually do like each other. We actually do like to be together. And the thing that was really tearing us apart was the fact that we were living separate lives. So for the first time ever, I think for those first 2 weeks of COVID, as soon as he was home and we were, for the first time ever, a family together, living in a normal situation where we're both parenting our kids and we're both there. And it was amazing. And I was relieved, really, and so grateful and thankful. And while I know that the year of COVID for a lot of people was really destructive and very difficult on people's lives, their finances, their health, all the things, for us, it was really a year that saved us in so many ways and changed our lives forever. Him being home, really, like I said, it was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I love being a family. And I'm like, I don't want to go back. Well, it got to the place where the world kind of opened back up and flying started happening again. And so we're back to he's just leaving and he's gone and all these things. But that summer, we went and visited my family in Ohio, which is where Frownies is located. And my husband had always been super curious about Frownies. I was not curious. I loved the products, I love the brand, but I never saw myself as being in business. I never wanted to be a business person. I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. I never saw myself getting involved in all of that. I had done some trade shows and like gone to beauty shows and talked about the products, and people were always like, "Oh, you sound like you love it." And I was like, "Well, yeah, but I don't want to do this." But also, when I was younger and when the idea of Frownies, my grandmother was always like, "Oh, you're going to do this one day." And I was like, "Nah." But that was during a time where social media didn't exist. I have always been a community builder. I have always been a people person. I was this, like in my career, I was a school teacher, a yoga instructor, someone who's helping people and wanted to be connected to people. That was what I felt like was my gift. And that was who I always saw myself as. And so to me, I imagine that being in business was sitting behind a desk and looking at spreadsheets. And there's some of that, but I just didn't see myself doing that. But I think it's one of those things that, a man plans his way, the Lord directs his steps. And fast forward, my husband went to the Frownies headquarters and spent a day there with my mother, who is the president of the company at the time, and now today too. And he came home and was just like, "This is amazing. Oh my goodness. Let's move to Ohio. Let's get involved. Let's take over the company." And I was like, "No way. We are not moving to Ohio. We are not getting involved. No thanks." But we came home from that trip and we just really we started our date nights were on Thursday nights. We would go up, we lived in Arizona. We'd go up in the mountains where like all these beautiful homes were, and we would just walk around in the neighborhoods, in these beautiful neighborhoods in the mountains, and we would just talk. And so we just started taking walks and talking and just kind of asking God, like, what is next? We can't keep doing this aviation thing. Having a taste of what it was like to be a family and be together during that season of COVID just really made it like, okay, what are we doing? This is not good. But also, my husband, like, he loved aviation. It was completely his passion. He would have said he was born to fly. And honestly, most pilots do not leave aviation. Once you're a pilot, like more majority of pilots, like over 90% of pilots end up getting divorced because it's hard on a family. And it's like you've got to make a choice, aviation or your family, and most choose aviation. And so we knew, okay, what are we going to do? We're doing this aviation thing, but it's killing us, it's tearing us apart, it's destroying our family, destroying our relationship, but it's your passion. And I would say more than anything, my husband really just knew in his heart that this was something that the Lord was asking him to set aside and to choose his family. And he had always said before ever getting into aviation, because he saw the impact that it had on families, he had always said that if it ever impacted his family, if it ever influenced his, hurt his family, that he would walk away. But saying that before, it happens and thinking that it would never happen to you is different than experiencing it and seeing it's time for me to lay this down. So we kind of had more conversations and just looking at Frownies. And I really feel like as I started to look at the business and look at our social media, I started to see a place for me in the company. And I am an owner of Frownies, and I'm one of five children, and we're all five of us were the owners. And even though we were not involved, we were just, this is something that our grandmother passed on to us. And so I started looking at Frownies and I started seeing the social media. And because I'm doing social media for myself on my little, fitness coaching side hustle, I was like, oh, well, we need this and we need that. And I could do this and I could do that. And I could do Instagram stories. And I saw a place for me. And I really started to feel like that was stirred in my heart of like, oh, well, I could build this community online the way that I'm doing for my own stuff right now too. And I do love social media and I love connecting with people and building those relationships. So that was kind of like, okay, I could do this. And my husband, he has a marketing degree as well. And he was kind of like, I could get involved in the marketing. And that was something that we weren't really doing a lot at Frownies as far as like meta ads and social media and all of that. We did have some social accounts. My sister had kind of gotten those started, but there wasn't a lot going on.
Mhm.
And so it's like, okay. And we really just felt like that was the direction that God was leading us. And so we were like, all right. And we were taking a walk on a Thursday night, like I said, and we were talking about this plan to get involved at Frownies. And we were talking about where we should be and where we should go next because out in Arizona, we didn't really have a lot of friends or community because of the aviation life. We couldn't really get connected. People would say, like, oh, let's get dinner together sometime. And I'm like, well, we can make a plan, but we'll probably cancel because, my husband's on call and the schedule's so unpredictable or he's gone all the time. And so we're like, what should we do? And we were talking, and my husband is from Texas. We met here in Texas. We're in Texas now. And I, for the longest time, was like, not a Texas fan. And I think Texans just love Texas so much. I was like, this is just not the place for me. These people love this. I don't feel like that.
I have to tell you a funny story. We lived in Texas too, and it was like that where I'm like, I'm not a huge, Texan, and my husband wasn't either, but someone from Texas was like, "So how do you like Texas?" And my husband was like, "I mean, it's okay. It's not really our vibe." And I was like, afterwards, I was like, "Babe, you can't say that to Texans. They will kill you."
Right. Like, what do you mean? What's wrong with you? You must be a horrible person.
Right, right. So anyway, I totally know the feeling.
Yeah, it's funny. And I fully embrace it now. But what's funny is we're walking, and if anyone had said to me, would you ever move back to Texas? I would have said a very strong and immediate heck no. But we're just walking along, and I just like, it was like just dropped into my mouth before my brain could process it. I was like, would you ever want to move back to Texas? Because he has a lot of family here. And we have a lot of friends here, a huge community here. The people in Texas are the best, I can say. While as a location, I'm like, the people are wonderful. So I said, would you ever want to move back to Texas? And he immediately, his eyes lit up and he's like, oh my goodness, yes. And I was like, oh, why did I say that? So immediately it was like, okay, moving on. And so I just was like, ooh. But as soon as I said that, I really felt like the Holy Spirit just kind of started to do a work in my heart. And all of these reasons why I wanted to move back to Texas just started to flood my mind. And I was like, this is so weird. Because I loved Arizona. And as a location, highly recommend anyone want to know where you should live. That's the most beautiful place on earth, Scottsdale, Arizona. Anyway, I went home that night and I texted my friend who it was a realtor and I said, listen, don't freak out and don't tell anybody, but can you set up an MLS for me? I would just like to take a look. And so she sends me an MLS that night. I didn't tell my husband. That was Thursday. Friday, the next day, he leaves to go fly and I'm home with the kids that weekend. I'm sitting in church on Sunday, and as the very spiritual person that I am, I get a notification for an MLS email that Sunday. Well, I was looking at the MLS for a few days, and every house I was like, oh, no, no, no. Please, Texas, what are we doing? It's like all the houses have the big Texas star. They all have that like cream colored tile everywhere and wrought iron staircase, and just not my vibe.
Yep.
And I was like, Texas. And anyway, I get this notification. I'm sitting there. And the sermon, it's funny, as much as I'm like checking my email during the message, the sermon title, I remember it all. It was Suddenly. And he was talking about how God does things suddenly, like you're going along and then suddenly. And there's so many scriptures that say things where it was like, this and that was happening and then suddenly the angel appeared or suddenly whatever. And so this was the whole message. And so I get this email and I open it. There's one new house on the market that day. It is the house I'm currently sitting in, and I look at this house and I was like, oh my goodness, this is the house. This is my house. I need to buy this house. We're moving to Texas. I'm moving into this house. This is it. And I just knew without a shadow of a doubt, we got to do this. I texted my husband and I was like, I texted in the MLS and I'm like, I want to buy this house. And he's like, doesn't even know. I mean, all I have said to him is, would you ever want to move to Texas? And here we are 3 days later, he's gone And I'm like, this is the house. And he says, well, if you want that house, you better move fast because that's going to sell. And so I reached out to a friend who was a lender and I was like, get me a pre-approval for a loan. I called my realtor in Arizona and I was like, we're doing this. I called my friend who was a realtor and I was like, my realtor who set me up the MLS. I was like, I want to see this house. This is the house. And she's like, okay. So I go home. She goes and sets up a video walkthrough. She does a walkthrough. She shows me the house. I got approval for the loan. We made an offer that night. The next day, they accepted our offer. And I called my realtor in Arizona. I was like, hey, I made an offer on a house in Texas. And he's like, what? And so he comes and we talk through. Literally, like 3 days later, he says to me, I think I have somebody who might want to buy your house. He said, I told them we're not on the market yet. Because I just thought, well, we'll just move and we'll figure out selling this house once we get out of it. Because I have little kids and I'm home alone. Like, how am I going to sell my house and get it ready?
Yeah.
And he said, well, I have these people, and he said, they live in Arizona, but they don't want to put their house in the market until they find something else because there was very little inventory at that time. And he was like, they just want to walk through. He said, I told him it was as is, like we're not set up. He said, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to, put anything away. They just want to see your house. And I was like, no, they're buying my house. And I spent like 4 days. I moved everything to the garage. I'm painting everything, refreshing everything. I was like, no, this is it. They're buying this house. We're doing this. And they did the walkthrough. They made an offer contingent on their house going on the market. They put their house on the market the next day. It sold. We literally 4 weeks from the day that we were walking in the mountains, and I was like, would you want to move to Texas? We were here in this house, and our other house was sold, and it was done. And then we were 100% full time. Like he quit his job. We were full time at Frownies.
Okay, so question. Frownie, that's an amazing story. So Frownies is located in Ohio. What was the Texas drop beside in addition to family? Why was it like, oh, Texas if we're going all in on Frownies? What was the connection?
Well, so we were coming into Frownies to take over the marketing, right? And so we knew like we wouldn't be working in office. And for me to do social media, I actually need to not be in the Frownies office. Like I need to be able to be in my house, like content creation, doing all of that. So there was just like we knew we could be remote. And I can't live in Ohio. It gets cold and it snows and it's not for me. But we just knew like, okay, there's something for us at Frownies. We just felt the pull, like we're supposed to do this. We're supposed to get involved at Frownies. We can do this remotely, but we also felt like it's time to move away from Arizona, new season. And because all my husband's family are here, and because we have a lot of community and friends here, we just kind of knew like for our family, there was sort of two priorities. Like, yes, we are going to get involved at Frownies, but more than that, we need to rebuild our family. And pretty much like having gone through 10 years of aviation and just our relationship being broken and our kids just suffering the brunt of that, it was like we need to go somewhere where as a family we can rebuild and we can be in a good place and we can have community and we can raise our kids somewhere where we have that support. And so because family and friends were here, that was really the draw to Texas. And so it just all came together and we were here. And so then we start, all in on Frownies. And this was end of October 2020. And by and everything was going great at Frownies. And we really like gave up my husband's aviation salary, coming to Frownies thinking like, okay, we can work with this smaller salary and we can figure this out. It's going to be fine. But I will say for a few years post giving up aviation, my husband really went through like a phase of like discovering a new identity. It was like he was a pilot and it was brutal. And he was kind of depressed even for like a whole year of just not flying. And it was a really huge sacrifice for him. But immediately for us, for our marriage, it was immediately just everything we needed. And it was like he knew it was the right thing and he knew it was worth it, but it was still just so sad. He was just so sad inside, not this was his passion, and he totally gave it up for his family. Well, the thing that's crazy though is end of 2020, someone sent me a message on TikTok or on Instagram, on my personal Instagram, of a TikTok video. She's like, "Have you seen this TikTok video about Frownies?" And I was like, "No." And I looked at it and it had like 2 million views. And at the time, like our Instagram, and we didn't have a TikTok, our Instagram was super tiny.
Yeah.
It was just like, not a lot going on. But anyway, so this 2 million views, I was like, oh my word, we need to be on TikTok. And I was like, like I don't want to do this because that was before Instagram Reels. Now everybody makes Instagram Reels. It's just what you do. But that was very intimidating to me to start making like short form video content for TikTok. But I was like, okay, we've got to have a TikTok account. So I start the TikTok account and immediately post my first video and it got like 60,000 views, which was crazy because we're getting like 200 views on Instagram. And I was
Wow.
like, oh my goodness. And I post again and again. And it's like 60,000, 100,000, 200,000, 600,000, 2 million, 6 million. It just was like
Wow.
crazy. And then Instagram Reels becomes a thing. So we start posting in Instagram Reels, same things happening there. It just was like all of a sudden, everything just blew up. And we pretty much went viral the whole year of 2021. And my husband and I now went from 208 days a year apart for 10 years to we're literally all day, every day, 24/7, sitting there together, doing this, replying to all the comments together. He's basically like answering for me, like as my voice. And it was like nonstop all day, every day. And it was like, wow, I would have never thought I could work. Like, I wondered if we could even live together, the same place and survive. And here we are 24/7. And it was just like this outpouring of blessing on our business, on our marriage, on Frownies, on just everything. And it was incredible and exhausting, but in a good way instead of in a this is really hard and what are we going to do? And I hate this kind of a way, you know? And that next year ended up, like I said, my husband giving up his aviation career, his salary, and we pretty much 10x'd through Frownies. We pretty much 10x'd the business, 10x'd the salary. Like we were able to give away the same amount of money he made in his aviation career the
Wow.
prior year. We
Wow.
were able to give away that amount
Yeah.
from what happened with Frownies. And it was just like a mind-blowing blessing. And we became the number 3 search term in Google in beauty that year through all that had happened. And then really from there, I didn't come in intending to be the face of the brand. I just was gonna help get our social media going. And it was like, obviously God had a plan and it was just sort of, I was sort of launched into this, okay, you are the face of the brand. You are the fifth generation woman founder, and here you are, and do the thing. And so it really wasn't anything I planned on. It wasn't anything I anticipated. We just knew we need to prioritize our family. We need to be obedient. We need to walk away from aviation and we need to like make sure our marriage survives. And um, it's been a lot of work the past 5 years. It's been a lot of challenge. But the awesome thing is that we traded the struggle and the challenge of our marriage being the worst thing in our life to our marriage being the best thing in our life. And the challenge is something we're facing together rather than against each other. And it really all came from that willingness to just trust God and sacrifice some things that we thought were what we wanted or we thought were what we were supposed to be doing or what were passionate about. And the blessing has been incredible and completely unexpected and not something we ever anticipated or imagined would happen. And so here we are today. And the really cool thing for me is also, I have discovered I actually do have a very big gift and love for business and entrepreneurship. And also really realizing that businesses that are successful are businesses that build community, and are businesses that help people, and are businesses that connect with people and that have that human element. I just never, I never really, was in, experienced that, but I have loved being able to build a team and to develop my leadership skills and to be able to give back to people from everything that's been given to me. And so, yeah, I think sometimes it's one of those things where you think you know who you are and what you want and what you're supposed to do and what you're all about. And you're doing it, and it's just brutal, and you're feeling like it's not working, and you're feeling broken inside. And but I think my heart was always like, God, like I want what you want for me. Like, help me. What do we do? And I think sometimes the request or the ask can be like, really? Like, move to Texas, give up aviation? Like, can we really do that? But we got to that place where it was like, we have to do something else. And, or we could choose to let it all crumble and walk away and start over. And I'm so thankful for a husband that was willing to give up his passion to allow me to shine and allow me to do what I do. And he's right here in it with me as well. He doesn't get enough credit. Nobody knows who he is or that he exists out in the world. But really, a lot of what you see is because of what he's doing behind the scenes as well, in the business and then also in our family. So I think it's unconventional. In many ways, like if we were to look at things, I mean, he is just as much in the parenting and in the stay-at-home dad life as I am in the stay-at-home mom life. I mean, neither of us, we're both staying at home, but we're both working. Neither of us are like the full-time parenting parent, but he is so much, he's probably even more engaged with the kids than I am. He's always doing the school drop-offs and all the things. And that might be something that maybe others would be like, what? But it's like, this is what he was created to be. He's an amazing dad. It was one of the reasons that I married him, was because I was like, oh, he's going to be an amazing dad. And that was really important to me. And we're doing that. And I think it's just one of those things where I would say in our story, I would say, life doesn't have to look like you traditionally think that it should. And you might be surprised if you're willing to give up your ideas of like who you think you are and what you think you're supposed to be doing. You never know what other like things lie behind the door of just like being willing to step outside of what you think it's supposed to look like into something new that maybe God has other ideas or other plans. And I think that if your posture of your heart is, I want to be where you want me to be, he will help you get there. And like I said, I would have never moved to Texas. I would have never sold our house in Arizona. I would have never come here. I would have never imagined it could happen that quickly. My husband would have never thought he'd give up aviation, and I would have never thought I would be on TikTok. I would have never thought I would be in business. And here we are, and it's been amazing. And it's just so fulfilling, and it's right where we needed to be. And the blessing that has come from that is more than we could have asked for or dreamt up, really.
I love that. And so many times I feel like I have questions, but I feel like you just covered so much in such a great way. Like you talked about the grieving and the sacrifice and the obedience and the blessing, and you just kind of covered all of it. So I guess my only question for you is, do you have like a life verse or a verse that has really carried you through this journey?
I think I wouldn't say I have a life verse. I am the type of person that's always like, the moment I choose something is like, this is it. This is my favorite. And then it changes, right? But I definitely think a couple of the things that I always come back to is one, I love Psalm 23. I love just the idea that um, he leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. All of those things in that chapter, I could keep going back to over and over again. Because in every season, even now, even though I feel like this is amazing and this is where the Lord has us, there's a lot of challenge and there's a lot of struggle. I also really love, I really love the verse, and the reference is escaping me right now, but he goes before me and behind me, and just the whole like, you know, every one of my thoughts, you know me inside and out, and you know every day of my life before it even comes to be. All of that kind of that he knows, and he's surrounding my life at all times, and he has a plan for me, and he if I'll keep my eyes fixed on him, he will lead me and guide me. And I can make my plans, but he will direct my steps. And I think all of just those concepts and those promises are probably what I lean on most, more than a specific verse.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. My one last question for you is, what are you excited about moving forward with the building process with Frownies? Can you give us a insight into whether it's personal or business, or what's exciting you about the building process, and where are you headed?
Well, I will say, there are a lot of exciting things around the corner for Frownies. I feel like even though we've had a lot of success, in many ways too, we're really just getting started. We've only really dipped our toes into mostly growth via social media. And, there's a lot more like retail and just expanding into some other things it's going to be really exciting. But I think even more than that, what I am most excited about is what this will mean for our family. I think I'm looking forward to, I've been building a team and just kind of trying to create more like life balance, if that's a thing. But I really am grateful for all that has happened, and I'm really looking forward to being able to be a team even more so with my husband outside of the business, as we get the business in a really stable place, and we um, continue to grow and build teams. I'm looking forward to what this will allow us to do, to give to others financially and to help support them, to share our story, and even all that we've learned. We've learned a tremendous amount in marketing, and we have a lot of different friends who own businesses, and it's like been really fun to be able to share what we've learned and to see the things we are doing, pass those on to others and help them. I just love helping people. And I feel like through our experiences, through our story with our marriage and our family, through our story with our business and the things we've learned there, the ability to help more people, and even financially help more people, I just really love to bring joy to people's lives and to help and support people. And I feel like with every year that goes by, we're able to do that more and more, whether it is through things we've learned with business or through financial like support and giving back to the community, or even just he and I telling our story and being able to encourage people who are in a hard place and having a hard time. And so just all of that is really the thing, just being able to be a team with him more and more as the years go by, and that our entire journey has so many different components that can help other people who may be in it. And because we've kind of come to the other side of some of it, I just love just being there for people and caring and being able to encourage them and maybe give them something that helps them, kind of get on the other side of their season too.
Oh my gosh. Well, I have loved every minute of this. Your story is incredible, so encouraging. You are just so real and authentic about the places. And I think it's going to encourage a lot of people, because I see myself in that story. Like, we've gone through those seasons. And so I just am really excited about the people that are going to be encouraged from your story and where you guys are at. And so thank you so much for joining me and for being willing to share.
Yeah, of course. Anytime.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Broken to Build, and we will see you next week.